Good evening, and thank you for joining us. We've had a really interesting development right now with the statement that Jack Dorsey has made. Jack Dorsey was the former CEO of Twitter, and he was the CEO of Twitter when the farmer protests were on. He made a statement in an interview saying basically that the Indian government threatened to shut down the platform, to raid employees' homes, employees of Twitter, homes in the country, if Twitter did not follow the instructions given to them by the Indian government, and those instructions included the removal of several tweets and accounts from the platform, specific to do with the farmers' protest. Twitter was also asked to censure journalists critical of the government, he alleged. Now, the Indian government has responded. The Minister of IT, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, has put out a statement, and I quote, it says, "This is an outright lie, perhaps an attempt to brush the very dubious period of Twitter in history. No one went to jail, nor was Twitter shut down. Dorsey's Twitter image had a problem of accepting the sovereignty of India's law, and it behaved as if laws of India do not apply." Now, the opposition has been very critical of the government, specifically with this matter, saying effectively that the government has been exposed for what it's truly doing. Joining me right now is Ms Priyanka Chaturvedi. She's a member of parliament with the Rajya Sabha. She's a deputy leader of the Shiv Sena Uddhav Thackeray faction in in government, in the parliament, and she's a member of the standing committee of commerce, and she joins us right now. Ms. Chaturvedi, good evening, and thank you for making time for us. You've put out a statement as well on the matter. As opposition members inside of Parliament, what is your reaction to what we have heard from Jack Dorsey?
What he has said is actually an endorsement of what we have been witnessing, even inside the Parliament, outside of it. We've seen how these farmer protests were, they were demonized, they were undermined, they were lathi charged, the farmers, they were led to their deaths literally. They were called terrorists, they were called anti-national. So that's one part where the farmers continue to protest, demanding that these acts that were passed inside the parliament are withdrawn. Inside the parliament, these three particular bills were bulldozed without even listening to the opposition views. Opposition that was protesting was totally unheard, and the bills were passed amidst a din. And those who were protesting loudly were also suspended. So outside of the parliament, we've seen what happened to the farmer protest, where they tried to say that it was something supported by the Khalistanis, it was supported by Pakistan, it was supported by the enemies of India. And now the third part of it that has come across is through what Jack Dorsey has said. And it is a fact, and we have seen this, where Twitter offices were raided. Twitter, at that time, the Twitter India head, who was in Bengaluru, there were officials sent to his home. So what he's saying is something that we have all witnessed. It is just an endorsement of what we have been seeing throughout the farmer protest, where they try to undermine the entire protest and even try and defame the protest. But the farmers continued to protest and ensure that the government withdrew those acts.
Ms. Chaturvedi, the government continues to argue that all they asked for was for Twitter to follow the rules under the IT ministry and under the IT laws, and in the national interest and in the interest of national safety, remove information and misinformation that's not good. What is your response to that?
Under the garb of national interest, national security, the government has overtaken any objection that is of the government, or any criticism that is of the government, is now equated to being anti-national, against nation's interest. And this is what happened with the farmers' protest, how they were demonized, how they were called anti-nationals, they were called terrorists. Similarly, I must tell you that I was amongst the first persons as a member of parliament who wrote to the IT minister then, which was Ravi Shankar Prasad, that these, big tech firms are working in our country. They have to adhere to the geographical law of the land. And considering they look at us as a market, but they feel they're absolutely unaccountable for their act and deed, was in the context of the amount of fake news and narrative that was being pumped into those social media platforms through the, political party of the day, which is in the government. But however, whatever policy that was introduced was not balanced under the garb of national interest and national security, which we see even in the personal data protection bill right now. They try and undermine, quell any protest that or any voices that speak against the government. And this is exactly what was happening. So, like Jack Dorsey said, that India is a democracy, but it was shunning all voices that were speaking against the government of the day. So, government, under the garb of compliances, under the garb of following, the law of the land, they've created a law which is good. And I continue to say, today it is the BJP in power. Tomorrow it could be some other political party in power. They will continue to, eat at the entire democratic principles and constitutional safeguards that we have put in place. For example, freedom of speech. It is being chewed away every single day because of the might of the party that is in power right now.
Chaturvedi, it's a larger question, not specifically to do with Twitter. When we're discussing India's democracy, we have a parliament. We have a very, very strong judiciary. We have, on paper, freedom of speech and expression. We have fundamental rights that are protected for us. What makes you think that the government at this point can limit our personal freedoms and our fundamental freedoms in this manner, as you are alleging, without any accountability? Because our parliament functions, our courts function.
No. Our parliament, unfortunately, has not been functioning the way it should be functioning because the government is absolutely intolerant to criticism. We have seen the entire session, last session, being washed away simply because they were demanding an apology from a member of parliament who had said nothing which went against the nation, because they wanted to not discuss the entire corruption angle that had emerged post the Hindenburg report. We are also seeing, a systematic shutting down of voices of the opposition. Like I gave you the example where members of parliament were suspended. Members of parliament are suspended arbitrarily as well, anytime they are vocal enough to speak. Any journalist who wants to take up issues is silenced, effectively silenced. You see the ED, CBI, IT getting overactive, any opposition party of the day. And I say this with total, utter confidence and utmost responsibility, that any political party which is currently fighting the Bharatiya Janata Party sees itself under the lens of ED, IT, CBI, and various other central agencies. We saw that happen unfold last night in Tamil Nadu, which, against a minister. So this just goes to show that there is an effective module where agencies itself are being used. The safeguards that were put in place to ensure that agencies are not compromised stand compromised today. And that is the unfortunate reality. And it's happening one day at a time. So in fact, even the dismissal coming from the MOS IT smacks of that arrogance that nobody can question us, nobody can challenge us, and we are the total authority. And that is where checks and balances are needed, and we need to question which way are we heading as a democracy.
Do the parties in opposition right now in Parliament have a response or a plan on this particular matter of the statement coming from the former CEO of Twitter?
Considering we have a monsoon session coming up, also I'd like to tell you one thing. Anyone who has spoken up along with what Jack Dorsey has said, suddenly we are seeing the conversation being reduced to, oh, this is an attack against India. This is not an attack against India. India is way above its elected governments, and governments are changed by the will of the people. That's how democracy functions. So this entire confusing the electorate by saying, oh, this is an attack on India is a ridiculous charge. As far as the opposition is concerned, I think we are all on the same page. We are witness to the fact how we are being effectively silenced, and we have agencies going after us, and anyone who's vocal enough to take a stance is silenced. We will take this up with the government. And I think when we talk about effective checks and balances, the government also needs to be accountable. Considering monsoon session is upcoming, we will see how jointly we will have a strategy on this. But we want some kind of investigation to happen as to who were the accounts, which were the accounts which were being silenced, which were the tweets which were being asked to be taken down. And that investigation will actually reveal the entire agenda of the party, which misuses the authority that has been bestowed on them for the betterment of the nation. They are using it to reduce our personal freedoms.
Does this suggest that voices in India are not free across social media, across the board?
If you look at the takedown requests that come from the government of India during the 2019 to 20 period, the highest number of takedown requests to Twitter went from India. Now, if you look at, now I'll give you an example of Suli by Bully deals. Suli by Bully deals was being used by a group of young fellows who thought it was absolutely all right to, go after women who have an opposing point of view, women who belong to a particular religion, and there was absolutely nothing coming from the central government. So when we say let's be balanced about it and let's seek accountability, there was no accountability. It happened not once, it happened twice with these women, where their photographs, personal identities were taken, they were auctioned, and there was humiliation coming for them. But the government continued to choose silence. And now the government is trying to demonize someone who said that, we were asked to take down these requests. So if you ask me very honestly, if those social media platforms are evenly balanced, they are not, and they haven't been since years. And that is why I say that when there is an unfair advantage of the government machinery and having weaponized the entire social media platforms, it gives an unfair advantage to those who have weaponized it, who are using government machineries, those who have that positions of power to be able to silence those voices who want to question the authority, who want to ask questions, who want to let the people of the country know what really is happening. And that is what is being systematically done through weaponizing these social media platforms.
Ms. Chaturvedi, there is a report that's actually just out today, which says that India's internet shutdowns have hurt the most vulnerable part of our community. And this is from the Human Rights Watch and Internet Freedom Foundation. In Manipur, for example, the internet remains shut down for an inordinate amount of time. This report also says that the government regularly uses internet shutdowns as a default policing measure, basically cutting off resources to the poorest. Is there
Absolutely.
yes, go ahead. Is there a room here to argue against the use of internet shutdowns as a policing measure as well?
And no, it has become a tool again. Every time you want to, while I totally agree that there could be an urgent need where we are seeing a riot like situation where you need to cool off the people's sentiments, emotions for a particular hour, or for a few hours, or for a particular day, because you feel that it could lead to further messing up of the situation. But when you do it for months on end, like for example, after Article 370 was revoked in Jammu and Kashmir, they were without the internet facilities for months, probably years. And I don't think they have these 4G networks even now functioning, besides the state-owned and government-owned mobile networks. So those are challenges that we see. What is happening in Manipur? There was a very famous news journalist who once said the Northeast region is not covered because of the tyranny of distance. Distance was covered through mobile connections and internet connections, being able to understand what really is happening in Northeast. But in the case of Manipur, we just don't know what really is happening, how much of an effort the state government is putting in, how much of an effort the central agencies are putting in, or central government is putting in, because you have found the convenient route out that let the information just not go out. Let's shut down the internet. So much more easier. There's no information, there is no problem, there is nothing, and we will do work at our own pace. We will continue to campaign in Karnataka, we will continue to campaign in Tamil Nadu, we will campaign in Maharashtra, while Manipur can continue to burn. And that is a difficult, dangerous situation to be in. Internet shutdown has become a convenient tool for the government to escape accountability.
Ms. Chaturvedi, thank you so much for your time and for speaking with us on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
For more news and updates, download the Beetroot News app from the App Store and the Play Store.